She was careful. She was smart. And most importantly, she was never caught. So she thought she had control. But some choices don't need exposure to destroy everything. Because what happened next didn't come from being discovered. It came from what those choices slowly took away. Backhand index pointing right. This is the story of how a secret life quietly led to losing everything. I remember the first time she said it. Not directly. Not in a way that would make anyone stop and question her. It was subtle. Like most dangerous things are. I just want to feel alive again. At the time, it didn't sound like a warning. It sounded like honesty. We were sitting across from each other, not too close, not too far, in that strange space where conversations feel personal but not binding. I didn't know her well then, not really. But there was something in the way she spoke, like she had already stepped halfway out of the life she was living. She never mentioned her husband right away. That came later. Slowly. Carefully. As if she was introducing a character in a story she no longer wanted to be part of. "He's not a bad man," she said once. And that was the moment I knew. Because when someone starts justifying before you even ask the question, it means they've already crossed a line in their mind. What she wanted wasn't love. It wasn't even connection. It was escape. And escape always comes at a cost. But she wasn't thinking about that. Not yet. At first, it looked like harmless freedom. New places. New faces. New conversations that didn't carry the weight of expectation or routine. She moved through those moments like someone rediscovering a part of herself she thought she had lost. And maybe she had. But the problem with rediscovery is this. You don't always find something new. Sometimes, you just lose what you already had. She didn't see it that way. To her, it felt like control. Choice. Ownership of her own life. And I won't lie, I understood it. That's the dangerous part. Because when you understand someone's reasoning, it becomes harder to question it. Easier to justify. Easier to stay silent. And silence, I've learned, is where consequences begin. It didn't collapse all at once. Lives rarely do. Instead, it unraveled. Thread by thread. Invisible at first. Then undeniable. She became harder to reach. Not physically. Emotionally. There was always a distance in her responses now. A delay. A calculation. Like she was constantly measuring what to say, and what not to. Not because she was afraid of being caught. But because she was managing multiple versions of herself. And that kind of balance doesn't last. I saw it in the way she talked about home. Less detail. Less warmth. More avoidance. It wasn't that she hated it. It was that it no longer felt like hers. And once that shift happens, everything else follows. She started spending more time away. Again, not in ways that would raise immediate suspicion. Just enough to create space. Enough to make her absence feel normal. Routine. But there's a difference between space and distance. And she had crossed into distance. That's when the cracks started to show. Not outwardly. But internally. She began questioning things she used to accept without thought. Her choices. Her identity. Her place in the life she had built. And instead of grounding her, those questions pulled her further away. Because once you start asking yourself if something is enough, it rarely ever is again. She didn't lose everything in a single moment. There was no dramatic confrontation. No sudden discovery. No explosive ending. That's what makes it harder to understand. Because from the outside, nothing seemed wrong. Her husband didn't catch her. He didn't confront her. He didn't even suspect, at least not in any way that changed things immediately. But something shifted. Quietly. Irreversibly. He became distant. Less engaged. Less present. Not in anger, but in awareness. And that's worse. Because anger demands resolution. But awareness? Awareness creates distance. And distance creates endings. Without a single word being said. She felt it. Of course she did. The change in tone. The absence of warmth. The way conversations became shorter, more functional. Less personal. And for the first time, she didn't feel free. She felt displaced. Like she was no longer fully part of the life she had once taken for granted. That's when it hit her. Not what she had done, but what she had lost. And by then, it was already too late. She didn't leave. Not immediately. Because leaving requires certainty. And she didn't have that. What she had was realization. And realization is heavier. Because it forces you to sit with what you've done, without offering a clear way forward. The life she had tried to escape no longer felt stable. But the life she had stepped into was never meant to hold her. That's the truth about temporary escapes. They don't become foundations. They disappear when you need them most. And that's exactly what happened. One by one, the things she relied on began to fall away. Not dramatically. Not all at once. But steadily. Until there was nothing left to hold on to. And that's how she ended up where she did. Not because she was caught. But because she had nowhere left to stand. The last time I saw her, she looked different. Not physically. But in a way that's harder to explain. Quieter. Still. Like someone who had finally stopped running, because there was nowhere left to go. She didn't blame anyone. That surprised me. No anger. No excuses. Just understanding. And maybe, that was the hardest part. Because understanding doesn't undo anything. It just makes everything clearer. I thought I was choosing myself, she said. I didn't respond. Because I knew what she meant. And maybe I was, she continued. But I didn't realize what I was giving up. That's the thing about choices made in pursuit of freedom. They don't always feel like losses at the time. Only later. When the consequences settle. When the noise fades. When you're left with nothing but clarity. She wasn't caught. She wasn't exposed. She wasn't forced out. But she still lost everything. And that's what people don't talk about. That sometimes. The consequences of your actions don't come from being discovered. They come from what those actions turn you into. And once that change happens, there's no going back. In the end, no one exposed her. No one confronted her. No one even knew. But she still lost the life she once had. Because some consequences don't come from being caught. They come from becoming someone you can't go back from. Backhand index pointing right if this story made you think, feel, or question something. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more powerful stories like this. Because the next one might change how you see everything. Disclaimer, this story is a fictional narrative created for entertainment and life reflection. Any resemblance to real events is coincidental. Backhand index pointing right if you enjoy powerful, thought-provoking stories like this. Don't forget to subscribe for more.